Hello again, and welcome back to Year 5 of the Religious Education Initiative. This is week 51, day 1. So, last time we saw the reforming work of Josiah, the last righteous king of Judah, in which he finally overthrew the altars at Bethel, which Jeroboam had built for the for the perverted worship of Yahweh, the God of Israel, in which he made golden calves at Bethel and at Dan, and told Israel that they were the God that had brought the people out of Egypt. This was, of course, a repetition of the great sin with the golden calf at Mount Sinai long before, and it was the beginning of the path to the destruction of the northern kingdom of Israel. This time, however, we will see Josiah's sons and grandsons utterly fail to follow his example, and we will see the southern kingdom of Judah carried off into captivity in its turn. So, this is verse 31 of chapter 23 of 4th Kingdoms, or 2nd Kings if you prefer. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. And he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his fathers had done. Pharaoh Necho removed him, and replaced him with his brother Jehoiakim. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Zebidah, the daughter of Pedaiah of Rumah. And he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his fathers had done. In his days, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up, and Jehoiakim became his servant 3 years. Then he turned and rebelled against him. And the Lord sent against him bands of the Chaldeans, and bands of the Syrians, and bands of the Moabites, and bands of the Ammonites, and sent them against Judah to destroy it, according to the word of the Lord, which he spoke by his servants the prophets. Surely this came upon Judah at the command of the Lord, to remove them out of his sight, for the sins of Manasseh, according to all that he had done, and also for the innocent blood that he had shed, for he filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, and the Lord would not pardon. So Jehoiakim slept with his fathers, and Jehoiachin his son reigned in his stead. Jehoiachin was 18 years old when he became king, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Nehushta, the daughter of Elnathan of Jerusalem. And he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his father had done. At that time, the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up to Jerusalem, and the city was besieged. And Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to the city while his servants were besieging it. And Jehoiachin, the king of Judah, gave himself up to the king of Babylon, himself and his mother and his servants and his princes and his palace officials. The king of Babylon took him prisoner in the 8th year of his reign, and carried off all the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the king's house, and cut in pieces all the vessels of gold in the temple of the Lord, which Solomon king of Israel had made, as the Lord had foretold. He carried away all Jerusalem, and all the princes, and all the mighty men of valor, 10,000 captives, and all the craftsmen and the smiths. None remained except the poorest people of the land. And he carried away Jehoiachin to Babylon, the king's mother, the king's wives, his officials, and the chief men of the land. He took into captivity from Jerusalem to Babylon. And the king of Babylon brought captive to Babylon all the men of valor, 7,000, and the craftsmen and the smiths, 1,000, all of them strong and fit for war. And the king of Babylon made Mattaniah, Jehoiachin's uncle, king in his stead, and changed his name to Zedekiah. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he became king, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. And he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that Jehoiakim had done. For because of the anger of the Lord it came to the point in Jerusalem and Judah that he cast them out from his presence. And Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon. And in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, on the 10th day of the month, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came with all his army against Jerusalem, and laid siege to it, and they built siege works against it round about. So the city was besieged till the 11th year of King Zedekiah. On the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine was so severe in the city that there was no food for the people of the land. Then a breach was made in the city. The king with all the men of war fled by night by the way of the gate between the two walls by the king's garden, though the Chaldeans were around the city, and they went in the direction of the Arabah. But the army of the Chaldeans pursued the king and overtook him in the plains of Jericho, and all his army was scattered from him. Then they captured the king and brought him up to the king of Babylon at Riblah, who passed sentence upon him. They slew the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes, and put out the eyes of Zedekiah, and bound him in fetters, and took him to Babylon. In the 5th month, on the 7th day of the month, which was the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, Nebuzaradan, the captain of the bodyguard, a servant of the king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem. And he burned the house of the Lord, and the king's house, and all the houses of Jerusalem, every great house, he burned down. And all the army of the Chaldeans who were with the captain of the guard broke down the walls around Jerusalem. And the rest of the people who were left in the city, and the deserters who had deserted to the king of Babylon, together with the rest of the multitude, Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carried into exile. But the captain of the guard left some of the poorest of the land to be vine-dressers and plowmen. And the pillars of bronze that were in the house of the Lord, and the stands and the bronze sea that were in the house of the Lord, the Chaldeans broke in pieces, and carried the bronze to Babylon. And they took away the pots, and the shovels, and the snuffers, and the dishes for incense, and all the vessels of bronze used in the temple service, the fire pans also, and the bowls. What was of gold the captain of the guard took away as gold, and what was of silver as silver. As for the 2 pillars, the one sea, and the stands which Solomon had made for the house of the Lord, the bronze of all these vessels was beyond weight. The height of the one pillar was 18 cubits, and upon it was a capital of bronze. The height of the capital was 3 cubits. A network and pomegranates, all of bronze, were upon the capital round about. And the second pillar had the like with the network. And the captain of the guard took Seraiah the chief priest, and Zephaniah the second priest, and the 3 keepers of the threshold, and from the city he took an officer who had been in command of the men of war, and 5 men of the king's council who were found in the city, and the secretary of the commander of the army who mustered the people of the land, and 60 men of the people of the land who were found in the city. And Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, took them and brought them to the king of Babylon at Riblah. And the king of Babylon smote them, and put them to death at Riblah in the land of Hamath. So Judah was taken into exile out of its land. So there is no good news here. This is the end of the kingdom of Judah. This is the line of the descendants of David who are kings. This is the end of the temple of Solomon. This is the end of all the things that he had dedicated and built. This is the end of the children of Israel living in the promised land that God had given to them. They are returned, of course, not of course, as it happens, not as it happens either. After 70 years, the children of Judah and Benjamin are returned to the city of Jerusalem, but they do not establish a kingdom. They establish a province, and they are governors under the kings of Persia, and then under the kings of the Macedonians, of the Greeks. They eventually establish a kingdom once again until the Romans abolish it and put Herod as the king over all of them. But this is the end of the line of David reigning as kings in Jerusalem. This is what the people of God at the time of Christ are grieving and remembering and hoping to have returned and restored once again. And yet, because of their faithlessness, God has handed them over to the hands of Nebuchadnezzar. And this is justice. This is exactly what was promised would happen if the people of God did not remain faithful to him, even from Mount Sinai, even from Deuteronomy. It is throughout the Torah, this understanding that if they are faithless, then they will lose the promised land which they have been given. One thing that is interesting, however, we see effectively 2 different lines of the sons of Josiah. Jehoahaz first, and he is, he's no good. he is removed by the Pharaoh Necho after 3 months. Then, so I should say 3 lines. Jehoahaz first, 3 months he reigns. Then Jehoiakim, and he does a little bit better. He reigns 11 years. He has a different mother. But he was evil in the sight of the Lord, and his son at least succeeds him, but Jehoiakim only reigns 3 months in Jerusalem, and then Nebuchadnezzar comes. So we can see that Egypt and Babylon are fighting over this land, and Judah is siding with picking the wrong side each time. So when Jehoiakim is removed, then a third son of Josiah, Zedekiah, Mattaniah, but he's renamed Zedekiah, is placed in charge of the kingdom, ruling as the representative of Nebuchadnezzar, but he rebels, and therefore the kingdom is destroyed, the city is destroyed, his sons are killed before his eyes are put out, and he's taken as a captive to Babylon. Now what we have to understand is that means that that Jerusalem is conquered and plundered by the Babylonians twice. Once under Jehoiakim, and then once 11 years later when Zedekiah is overthrown, and that's the end. But this first time, when Jehoiakim is taken away, a great many of the highest officials, a great many of the aristocrats, are taken captive into Babylon. And among them are the 4 young men that we know from the book of Daniel. Daniel and his friends Hananiah and Azariah and Mishael, or Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These are princes of the house of Judah who are enrolled in the bureaucracy of the king. And therefore we see more of them in the book of Daniel, which we've read before. From also taken captive are many of the priests, and therefore Ezekiel, the prophet, who is, I believe, of the priestly house, he also is taken captive. And he and Daniel are both prophesying for the people in exile during this intervening period between the first plundering and conquest of Jerusalem and the final sack and destruction of the city. So that's the context for those 2 books. And they are the ones who give hope to the people in exile that there will be a restoration. But first, they give them assurance that the rebellion of Zedekiah will only end in destruction. And this is what we will see next week. For now, this is enough. God bless you all. We will see you shortly for day 2.